We are going to be looking in this selection at just one verse, Matthew chapter 20 and verse 16. And I'm going to be reading out of the American Standard Version. Matthew chapter 20 and verse 16. So the last shall be first, and the first last. There is nothing like seeing the accomplishments of a gifted athlete. It could be Usain Bolt, the Jamaican sprinter. It could be Caitlin Osman, the Canadian figure skater. It could be Eliud Kipchoge, the Kenyan marathoner. I suspect I massacred his name. A gifted athlete can make what they do look easy and effortless. Now, there is a problem with being an athlete, and that is by the time you are in your 30s, your career is going to be basically nearing the end or at the end. In rare cases, in professional sports, for example, some athletes are able to push into their 40s at an elite level. But what we are saying is if you are an athlete, the reality is the passage of young adulthood into middle age signals the end of your career. Now, the problem, of course, in professional sports is that in particular, there are always athletes who try to push issues, who try to keep going even after they're done. They feel that somehow they are going to be immune from the impact and effect that aging brings. And nothing can be more sadder to see than an athlete who once was a dominant athlete complete his or her career and no longer have the ability to compete at the high level that they once did. There comes a moment when retirement comes and there is nothing one can do to change it. Now, there are some athletes who are successful in that transition, and there are some that are not. Sports illustrates in a way what Jesus says in Matthew 20, verse 16. Think of it for a moment. You know, I can look at my age and know, in comparison to people of my own age, whose careers are in the rearview mirror by 10 and 20 years at this point, who've had successful sporting careers, and their names I could drop and people will go, yeah, I know this. I admired this person. I saw this person play. And in that sense, many of these athletes, we could say they are the first. They've gone out and accomplished great things, and in some cases been awarded handsomely for it. Whereas most people in life, well, they settle down maybe into college or university, or maybe enter into the workforce in their late teens and spend 30, 40, 50 years at their craft, field, trade, or enter into a career after their university days are over. And, they do quite well and they are quite accomplished, but they never have that kind of mark of success that an athlete has. Now, my point is that what we need is not, for a moment, the athlete whose career is over at 32 sort of thing, after a decade of tremendous accomplishment. What we need is those people ultimately in our society who can contribute 30 and 40 years of their prime adult years to the building up and working out of our society. Those are the people whose accomplishments we are far more indebted to. The Christian faith, therefore, is a call to a lasting legacy. Think of it for a moment. We often get all excited about a person coming to faith and making that decision for Christ. That's wonderful. Don't discount that. But if that is all there is, and soon they, don't really do anything with that, or at the very worst, a couple of years later, we find them outside the church, what has been accomplished. Athletes can very quickly reach the pinnacle of success and be trapped by that. The Christian faith is a call to a lasting legacy, a legacy that will not tarnish and fade with time. A Christian who is faithful to her Lord may pass through this life little known and little appreciated. The Christian faith is not a call to glory here and now. Now, please understand, I'm not minimizing or trying to besmirch the fact that some people were accomplished athletes. That's not my point here. I am speaking more of the fact that if that is all there is to one's life, there is something sad and tragic to it, because there are athletes decades later who are trapped. Their life and importance was over decades ago, and the rest of life is unable to recapture those moments. The Christian faith is not a call to glory here and now. The life of faith can find contentment in obscurity. This is contrary to the values of this world, for this is all there is. If you do not go for it here and now, it will be gone forever. The tragedy is that the church is not always above creating its own version of glory here and now. Jesus, being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Philippians 2:6. Here is the very principle of what Jesus is talking about in Matthew chapter 20, verse 16. If an athlete does all they need to do to accomplish an elite status for something that is by a lifetime, something very fleeting and limited, can we who are of Christ do any less to achieve that which will be permanent? Can we not build our lives on the service of Christ, knowing that that will last? Can we who know Christ be content to allow the world to pass us by? Jesus was willing to let go of all that he was to fulfill the will and purpose of God in his life. The issue is not so much whether we will attempt to accomplish great things for God. It is whether we will be and can be content to be his, even if it means a life of humility and service.